Hi, everyone. It's Robin again. So, in this segment, we're going to talk about when all of this is just too much, when our work becomes heavy, when we become exhausted. What do we do? How do we ask for what we need? How do we keep finding that extra level of being able to persist and make the next right decision? So, one of the things that I'm very aware of for persons in your sector is that the research, and this was research that was actually done at McGill University, identified that specifically in your sector of service persons who support adults with disabilities, there's a very high burnout rate. We actually see some staggering numbers, about 25% of the workforce leaving prematurely because of stressors, because of the weight of carrying this important work. So I wanted to specifically address this idea about that notion of burnout, that notion of distress, and really equip you with some tools on how to do some self-detection to notice that you're under a lot, but then also like, how do you ask for what you need? How do you make sure that you are looking after you? So to get us started, first and foremost, I just want to acknowledge that the work that you do is so important to our communities. It's so important to the families. It is so important to us as global citizens that we treat our vulnerable population to the best staffing care that they can receive. This work matters and people are counting on you. You are essential in more ways than one. And I'm mindful, especially during COVID, there's a lot of groups who talk about the fact that when we're talking about essential workers, people aren't thinking about their role. And I've worked with pharmacists who have said that as well. Like, we are essential. I've worked with cashiers and persons in grocery stores and gas stations. I've worked with auto mechanics who have been changing snow tires so those people can get to work to do that good work. Many persons have, in our public kind of perception, have overlooked some of those other essential pieces. And there's also a lot that's talking about that there's been some concerns about some of the environments that people are living in and they're working in. So I just wanted to really recognize and acknowledge that this has been a very difficult season. You have been in the trenches these last almost a calendar year now, trying to be of support to other people while also making sure that you are staying safe so you can be available for your family and the people that are counting on you. So this is real. This is a lot. So again, if you're feeling wobbly or a little bit tired or navigating in those places of duress, it's very understandable given the weight of the world that you are carrying with your two hands. So you might recall in the segment we talked about stress and stress detection. We identified that when you're in distress, there's some symptomology that we see. Now, at the bottom of that understanding of distress is where we hit burnout. And burnout is that bone fatigue, that exhaustion, that motivation is spent. You have nothing left and your body hurts emotionally, spiritually, physically, psychologically. You're just completely spent. So I get that. Now, one of the things that we see in terms of those behaviors, we start to pull away. We aren't enjoying the company of our loved ones the way we used to, or we're not enjoying some of the things. Now, there is a bit of a gray area between depression and burnout, and there's a lot of kind of competing knowledge and understandings about it. But what I'm talking about here is more of the you've gone above and beyond for way too long that you are absolutely depleted. You have gone into a deficit with your wellness. So that's what I'm talking about. But there is a place for a conversation around the mental health side of it, which is very important. And for some cases, that's where we do need to pursue that medical model for those supports. But in this case, I'm talking about the fact that this is a person who is just empty, like emotionally spent. So we see that there is a reduction in efficiencies and energy. Like it takes you longer to do simple tasks. It takes you longer to problem solve. Like you literally feel like you're kind of not getting any good momentum to help you move forward. We also see that there's a lot of errors. We start making simple mistakes and mistakes where in, our best days, we would look back and be like, what on earth? Like, why would I have done that? But in the moment, it felt very real. It felt very apparent that this was something that you were trying to navigate. Now, we also know there's this irritability that starts to encroach, that, nothing is good enough. Nothing can help us feel grounded. We feel really restless. We feel really unsteady, super duper wobbly. We also know that there's just this low grade frustration at everything, at the person ahead of us in the drive-through, at our family, heck, even at our dogs. Like, we just start to feel as though we're brewing this deep frustration. And that leads to like one of the markers of burnout, which is suspiciousness. We stop trusting. We just really stop trusting and thinking that people care about us or people are able to help us. Like, we get really discouraged. So what we do next is going to be crucial. Now, what I always let folks know is you need to take a break. You need to minimize the collateral damage. Now, I appreciate we all don't have access to breaks the way that we should. We might not have sick days or ways that we can continue to do the work, but get some time off of it. But first and foremost, if you've identified any of the symptoms that you are just not yourself, you need to pause and you need to get a break, whether that be like just 24 hours. You just need to be able to just unwind. Now, my invitation for you, if this is possible, is to actually take a day off. This isn't enough for like a weekend to try to recover or like a day off that you traditionally have. Like, you actually have to carve out a day where it's like, okay, I need to get my bearings. I need to see where am I at. So take that time if you can get it. Now, in that time, we go back to basics. We go back to make sure that emotionally, that your thoughts have a safe place to land. You need to cultivate psychological safety. You need to check in with your home team to make sure they know that you're having a hard time and you need support. We also know that we have to go back to basics in terms of basic nutrition. And when I'm working with persons who are going through major grief or a crisis, we literally go back to what are you going to eat for breakfast? We're going to start with a bowl of oatmeal. Like, it has to be basic, a piece of toast, because when you're experiencing burnout, for some people, they start to lose their appetite. They start to really struggle to even kind of make basic meals for themselves. Super simple. Like, I'm talking toast, I'm talking oatmeal, cup of tea. Just go back to the absolute basics. Physically try to make your body as comfortable as possible, right? So if that's pajamas or if that's a hoodie or a romper, like, just literally try to surround yourself in a place of comfort. We also know like blankets and like just trying to feel safe is also going to help. So I'm talking about take that day off and go down to the absolute basics to try and make sure you're okay. But you also want to reach out, because you need not do this alone. There's got to be someone who knows that, hey, you know what? I'm depleted. I have nothing left. I'm trying to take a day just to put things back together. And then be unproductive. Enjoy your show. Get lost in a novel if you can. Like, literally just give yourself a little bit of an escape. One of the things that I've always used as a strategy, I can get lost in a novel. Like, literally historical fiction, I can get just taken away to 18 whatever or 1590 France, and I can just all of a sudden let my mind think about nothing but what I'm looking at on that piece of paper. There's no wonder why adults like to revisit Harry Potter so often when we're in seasons of uncertainty. It might remind us of some positive childhood pieces in teenager years, but it also gives us escape. So use those to your advantage. Lean into those. There's no shame in that. You read or you watch whatever it is that's going to give you that moment just to make sure you're safe and you're landed, to cultivate your psychological safety. Okay. So make sure you are okay. Now, what I want you to also think about when you're ready is that there's certain things about what kind of things we need in our work environments to try to mitigate or minimize the risk of burnout. So what the research says is we really need to have a sense of connection to the company or the organization or to the cause in which we're supporting. So again, immediate relief, try to minimize the blast radius. And when you're ready, I want you to then start thinking about what is it that you need. So number one, the research on Jacob's work says we need belonging and connection at work. We need to know that we have a community that supports us. We also know that each of our roles has to hold a degree of significance. Like, every role within an organization has value and it counts. Our positions matter. We also need to have opportunities for learning. We can't maintain health and wellness in our work environments if we're feeling really stagnant. So quality opportunities for professional development are really important. Security and certainty when possible, right? I appreciate in a global pandemic, that's not always the case, but those are the things that we know help someone engage and stay dialed in their workplace. We also know about voice and recognition. You need to hear that you're doing a good job. You need to hear that the work you're doing matters. That's very important. We also know that where people start to experience burnout, there's this tendency that there sometimes is this piece around fairness, that there's things that are happening that aren't fair. So again, being mindful of diversity and inclusion and fairness and equity are very important. We also know that we need to be treated as adults in the workplace. I was recently talking to a colleague at the university who commented that she routinely has to say, please treat me as an adult, which again, it's just shocking that in 2021, we still have to say we need to be honored and valued, but it's something that we need to make sure that we are being respected. And number one, we do know that we have to have a sense of purpose, that purpose in terms of knowing that the work we do counts and it matters. The fact that we are carrying heavy workloads and the work that you do supporting individuals with disabilities, that is not only physical work, it's also heavy heart work. That takes part of you to do that job well, and understanding that we have to make sure that you're getting some recovery so you can be okay. Now, I specifically wanted to make sure that you were equipped to ask what you need. What do you need? So first, recover the best that you can, okay, minimizing the collateral. Then think about what are some of those principles of healthy work environments that you're struggling with or what you need to address. And then I wanted to share with you this theory that's called the language of compassion. This is how we ask for what we need. And we can use this in a personal setting as well as the professional setting. So this essentially is how we put ourselves out there. So how we ask for what we need is this theory that's called the language of compassion. So how this works is that there's a series of 4 steps that you can take to ask for what you need. Now, before you get to using this theory of compassion or the language of compassion, you have to identify what the need is. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to get across? So once you figure that out, here are the 4 steps that you can take. Step number 1, you say, this is what I observe. Without judgment or putting a narrative to it or justification, we simply say, this is what I've noticed. This is what I've observed. Step number 2, this is how it makes you feel. I feel whatever it is based on what you have observed. Step number 3, I need. You identify what is the need that you have. And step number 4 is the request. I request, or this is the need that I need to have fulfilled. So when we're thinking about asking for our needs, I appreciate that this is not easy to do. And I appreciate not all circumstances allows us to bring those needs requests forward. But what the research demonstrates is if we leave our needs unattended, we're increasing the risk of putting ourselves in a position of burnout. We need to maintain agency to be able to ask for the things that we need. And ultimately, when I'm working with persons, sometimes that core issue that some people struggle with is feeling as though that they have a right or that they are worthy for asking for help or they're worthy of asking for support. And I want to assure you, each and every one of us, we have a right to be safe. We have a right to be well. So you want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success when possible and proactively address issues whenever we can, but also not to feel shame or embarrassment if you need to ask for help. There is no shame in asking for help if the weight of the world is becoming too heavy for your 2 hands. And again, as I let you know in another segment, usually when we're working with, for example, the military, we worry about folks who've been in stressful situations for longer than 9 months. That's a long time for your body to be in a season of uncertainty. So being mindful that after that, our sense of wellness starts to erode. But what we do know is that when we are in big seasons, there's small behaviors that we can do to re-regulate ourselves swiftly. So make sure you take the time that you need so you can be well, so you can continue to be of service to others. So thank you. Merci, miigwech. I'll see you in our next segment. Bye for now.